My name is Gurkirat and welcome to this course. I'll be your instructor and I'll be teaching you how to deep dive into the world of Gemini using Google AI Studio. So, all of us have heard about stuff like Gemini, Google AI Studio, Generative AI, LLMs, right? But in this one small, short, and sweet course, you are gonna learn about how you can use Gemini to its full advantage. So, in this particular course, we are going to cover the basics, the advanced stuff that Google AI Studio has to offer, and at the end, we are going to make a small project in which you will be creating your own AI agent, which will be writing blog posts for you. So, whether you are a seasoned professional or someone who is getting started into the world of AI, this video is the right choice for you. Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. In today's video, we are going to explore the world of Google AI Studio. So Google AI Studio is a tool which is made by Google to make the integration with Gemini faster and quite accurate. Not only can we use our own structured prompt, but we can also use our own fine-tuned model to tweak the prompt to give accurate results. So as soon as you hit ai.google.dev/AI Studio on your browser, this is the web page that you are greeted with, right? So here, as you can see, they themselves say Google AI Studio is the fastest way to start building with Gemini. So I'll go ahead and click on sign in. So what that will do is basically whatever Gmail or Google ID that was associated with the browser, it will automatically take that and it will log us in. So after login, we see some very fancy sliders and terms here. No need to worry. We'll go through them one by one. But before going through the right hand side menu, we'll explore the left hand side menu first. So on the left hand side menu, as you can see, the first button says get API key. So whatever type of application that you are building, you will be required to generate an API key in order to talk to Gemini. So that is the starting point of integrating Gemini inside of your application. The application can be any kind of application, irrespective of the language that you are using Gemini with. You will require an API key to get started. The next option that we see here is called the create new prompt. So as soon as I click on this, I am able to see two type of options. The first option is a chat prompt and the second one is a structured prompt. So basically, whenever we are trying to make something like a chatbot, right, or an AI agent or a customer handling associate which uses AI, right, in those cases we'll use the chat prompt option. But wherever we don't want the chat aspect of Gemini to come into the picture, it is then we use the structured prompt option to integrate Gemini, right? So the next option that we have is the new tuned model. So just as we saw, right, that we have two types of prompts that we can create, the chat prompt and the structured prompt. So if we are creating a structured prompt and we want to provide some testing data to that particular structured prompt, it is then the new tuned model option will come into the picture. Just after the new tuned model, we have the my library module where all of the prompts that we had previously created would be stored and we will be able to revisit them. So this was all about the left hand side menu of the AI Studio, and below this my library we have some handy links that we can use to learn more about Google AI Studio, right? So this was all about the left hand side menu. So let's now jump to the right hand side menu and see what other options we have. The first option that we have is for choosing the model. So for example, Gemini currently supports three models: the 1.0 Pro, 1.5 Flash, and 1.5 Pro. The 1.5 Pro is the most latest one, so I'll use that. After that, we have token count. So what Gemini does is whatever data that we give to Gemini as a prompt, right? It breaks down that text into small chunks of data, and each small chunk of data is a token. So in this particular case, we can see Gemini can accept a prompt which has around 10 lakh, 10.4 lakh tokens. But if we go over that, Gemini 1.5 Pro will not be able to accept the whole prompt as one message. After that, we see the temperature. So that as we can see, the temperature is a slider from 0 to 1, right? From 0 to 1. 0 being the least creative and 1 being the most creative. So if we choose the temperature as 1, Gemini will be very creative and will give us creative answers. But if we want Gemini to just stick to whatever instructions we are giving in our prompt, we'll be more inclined towards setting the temperature towards 0 or 0.1, 0.2, something like that. After that, we have a section called add stop sequence. So if we want to stop the response of Gemini as soon as we encounter a word, this is where we can provide that list. I will show this in action in the example that we are going to take very soon. After that, we have the safety settings. So if I click on edit safety settings, you can see I can decide how Gemini will behave when it has responses that could be a bit harmful. So for example, I don't want any kind of harmful response for my particular prompt. So I will set each of the slider to block any kind of harassment related answer or hate related answer, right? So this is what we are gonna do. After that, we have some advanced settings that also we'll cover in one of the upcoming videos. So now let's go ahead and try to create a new prompt. So the first prompt that we're gonna try out is a chat prompt, right? Click on OK. So here, first of all, I'll just edit this, and what we're gonna make today is a calculator. Ask Gemini to act as a calculator and give us the results of only addition based questions. Okay. Now, writing this description is very important because this serves as more context towards how Gemini will act. Act as a calculator and only give me the results as the answer. If you cannot compute the term given by the user, say invalid result. You go ahead and click on save. Now I have to define the optional tone and style instructions for the model. Be very precise and to the point and return me the answer of the term that the user gives. If the term is not solvable, return invalid result. Okay. And the only change that I'll do here is I'll take down the temperature from 1 to 0. I want Gemini to follow my instructions to the T, right? So let's go ahead and try something. I'll give a very simple uh, mathematical term. So I gave 10 plus 5 and it returned 15. So now what we'll do is we'll try to add a stop sequence. We'll add a stop sequence at 0. And now intentionally what we'll do is we'll give an option like 10 plus 10, right? So 10 plus 10 will give us 20. So as you can see here, 10 plus 10 was supposed to be 20, but because we added a stop sequence of 0, it returned only 2. Now I'll just do one thing to show you how it works. If I give now 10 plus 11, right? 10 plus 11. Now it returns the right value, 21. But if I give anything related to 0, right? 10 plus 0, for example. So now instead of giving 10, it is returning me 1, right? So this is the utility of the add stop sequence. We'll remove this. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and try to give something very weird. We'll give 10 plus u 10 plus test, for example, right? So let's see what it gives. So it gave us invalid result, right? And so as you can see, this is now working really fine. Correct. Now we'll go ahead and save this. So this is now saved, and we can use this now. Now our prompt is ready. Like Gemini is ready to act as a calculator for addition, right? So now how do we integrate this? Correct. So what we'll do is we'll directly click on get code, and as you can see, it already gives us the Python implementation for adding this particular uh, adding this particular chat prompt to any Python application of our choice, right? So this is how you can create a very simple chat prompt and integrate it to your Python application or Android application or whatever application that you are working with very easy. So this was it for this video. We'll do an advanced technique prompt engineering in the next one. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. So in the previous video we explored the basic functionalities of Google AI Studio, but in this particular video we are going to explore some of the advanced options that Google AI Studio provides to us. So we are going to start with the previous example itself that we had taken, right? In the previous video we were trying to create a calculator structured prompt. So basically it was taking some of the inputs, right, which was a mathematical term, and giving us the right output for that. So in that particular example what we had done was we had given some of the inputs and outputs, right, manually. But what if I want to give all 500 examples, right? Then adding all of the input and output combinations here would be a very tiresome task, right? So what Gemini provides us is it gives us an option to make our own new tuned model. So basically what we can do is we can use a CSV or a Google Sheet as a input, and it will from that data source it will pull the input and the output combinations that we want to provide to Gemini. So let's go ahead and try creating a new tuned model. So if you see on the left hand side menu, there is an option for creating a new tuned model. I'll click on that. So here it says select data for tuning. So we already have one structured prompt ready, right, from our previous video. So here if you see, it has pulled up the manual input and output combinations that we had used in the previous example. But I want to provide more such input and output combinations so that Gemini exactly knows what kind of an output I am looking for. So in order to do that, what I've done is I've created one Google Sheet. So this Google Sheet has in the first row the headers, question and answer, followed by some particular input and output data sets. Okay. So for example, 2 plus 2, 4, 5 plus 3, 8. Like that, I have written down some of the cases here. So now let's go back to the Google AI Studio and click on import. We'll get this select a sheet or upload a file UI. So there, as you can see, it is showing the calculator training data in the recent tab. I'll click on that. It's loading. So it has finished loading, and as you can see, it has automatically taken the data from that particular Google Sheet. Yeah. So here you can see it has taken the header as question and answer, exactly like what I had given in the Google Sheet, and the input and outputs are pulled from there, right? So here I have the use first row as headers as ticked, because I want to preserve the headers and I want to prefix the column names as well. Okay. So for this particular column of question, this will serve as my new input column. So this is the input column that I want to provide for Gemini, right? And the answer will be the output. So as you can see, after choosing the assign to options, the import 20 examples button has enabled. So I'll go ahead and click on this. So here, if you see right in the data preview, inside the data preview, the one of 20, it is showing, right? So it has retrieved all of the data from the Google Sheet and it has been successfully imported inside of the Google AI Studio platform. So here I'll name it as calculator training data itself, and the model will is the only option that I have here is Gemini 1.0 Pro for now. So I'll choose that. And before going ahead, there is one advanced settings tab also. So here it basically takes the right combination on its own. Google AI Studio initializes these advanced settings rightfully according to the data that we just upload. But to give an overview, and this tuning epoch is nothing but how many times will these batches be fed inside to Gemini, right? So this is the meaning of the tuning epochs setting. So now I'll go ahead and click on tune. So as you can see, it is in queue now. So the tuning is now completed, as you can see here, right? So now what we'll do is we'll basically try to use this particular tuned model. So here one more thing that we see is it summarizes everything, right? The base model and the training time and the number of examples that we had given inside our Google Sheet. And okay, and one thing to note here, it also generates a model ID. So a model ID, just like we have Google Gemini Flash and Google Gemini Pro, right? What Google AI Studio basically does is it creates a specific model ID for the for the tuned model that we have just now tuned using our Google Sheet. And in order to use this particular tuned model inside of our code, instead of using Gemini 1.5 Pro or Gemini 1.5 Flash, we'll be using this particular model ID to use this particular tuned model inside of our code. And the other thing that we see here is this graph, right? So if you see very carefully, around the 4 mark, this particular graph plateaus in the sense it is now almost in line with the x-axis. So what this means is by the fourth iteration, the particular input that we were providing to Gemini was able to correctfully and accurately give the right output that we were expecting. So this is usually a good sign. If your loss and epoch graph is getting plateaued by the number where it is reaching your epoch, right, which is 5 for us, so that means the data set has been tuned properly and you will be getting the correct results in the way that you have defined. So in our case, the plateau happens at around 3.5 itself, which is a good sign. So now let's go ahead and try to see if our structured prompt with our custom fine-tuned model works or not. I'll click on use in structured prompt. For the model parameter, it has taken the calculator training data model now. So as I explained, a new model itself has been created in which Google AI Studio has provided our custom dataset to Gemini, right? So now let's go ahead and try to see if it works or not. So I'll give something like 10 plus 10 in here and try to get an output. So I'm getting 20. So now let's go ahead and try to write some gibberish and see if it works or not. So if I give 10 plus a, which is not a mathematical term that can be solved, it should give invalid input. So it is giving invalid input. So it is working as expected. So now a couple of things to note here. So here, if you see the temperature, right, even though the temperature is 0.9, even then it is giving us non-creative answers. Now why is that? Because we have already given a custom data set to Gemini. So Gemini knows what kind of an output we are expecting. So even if the temperature is say 0.9, which means we are asking Gemini to be creative, even then it will give us the output which is in sync with the output that we have given in the Google Sheet, right? So even if you make it as 0, it will still follow the pattern that you have given in the output. And the other settings here also work. So for example, if we want to add a stop sequence for say 0, right, and we try to rerun this particular test, so now instead of 20 it is giving us 2. So that means the stop sequence is also getting applied to our custom new tuned model. So we don't need this, so I'll just remove it. And you can also add the safety settings and stuff to your particular fine tuned model according to your needs. So that will also work. And last part of the puzzle is the get code. So let's try clicking on the get code. So here, if you see, the only difference that you will find in a structured prompt and a structured prompt with your own custom new tuned model is this particular line here, the model underscore name. So if you go and see in the previous example, the model name would be something like Gemini 1.5 Pro or Gemini 1.5 Flash. But because we are using our own custom fine tuned model, so that is why the ID that it had generated in the previous example, it is using that particular ID here as the model name, so that Gemini knows it has to consult with the particular new tuned model that we have created using our Google Sheet. So with this, if you copy paste this and use it somewhere inside a Python script, so now Gemini will be using your own fine tuned model, uh, which we have given via Google Sheet to arrive at the outputs. So this is how you can use your own custom fine tuned models inside of Gemini. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to show you as part of the advanced feature is how do we actually give an image as an input, right, to Gemini. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that using Google AI Studio. Now, what I'll do is I'll click on the create new prompt and click and try to create a new structured prompt. So here, if you see on the top, there is an insert image button. So I'll click on this image and I'll click on some of the sample images that Google is giving us, right? So I'll use this picture of a cat and I'll meanwhile just edit the prompt name as well. Animal detector. Okay. So very self-explanatory. We are trying to detect an animal inside of an image using Gemini, right? So what I'll do is I'll give the output as animal, right? Now let's go ahead and use another image. I'll use the image of this panda. I'll give it as animal, right? And I'll insert one more image and intentionally this time I'll give the picture of a sunflower and I'll give the output as not an animal, right? So here if you see the model using the Google 1.5 Flash, but we can also use the Google 1.5 Pro. And if you see the token count also, the token count is a bit on the higher side. It is so because we are giving the input as images, right? So as you just saw, it just spiked up to 544. So this is all because of the images. We are giving an image as an input, and image obviously occupies more space than a text. So now we come to the temperature. Temperature we can keep somewhere around zero point 0.5. Zero point 0.5 is actually also not needed. Let's keep it at 0.1. Okay, and you can also tinker with the safety settings. So this applies to all kind of prompts that you are creating inside Google AI Studio, right? So now let's go ahead and try to see how our prompt fares, right? So what we'll do is we'll give the picture of say this dog, right? And try to run and see what does our prompt give us as output. So it gives something like animal input, which is a bit weird, right? But let's go ahead and try to insert an image which does not have any animal or anything like that. We'll give this picture of a birthday cake, right? So for the birthday cake, it is working fine, but for the dog, it is not working fine. So what we can do is we can turn down the temperature a bit to 0.1, and for to handle images, this Google 1.5 Flash model is actually a bit better. So now we'll switch to the Google Gemini 1.5 Flash model, and we'll turn down the temperature to 0.1, right? And now we'll try to run and see if we are getting the expected result. So voila, that worked. A bit of fine tuning here and there, and you will get your correct answer, right? So this is working as expected, and this is how you can give an image as an input to Gemini and extract an output. So before actually wrapping up this video, let's see the get code section of this and see what is going on in here, right? So if you see here, it has already written the code using Python to upload a file, and on basis of that particular uploaded file, it will give you the correct output. So here also it has mapped, it has captured the training data that we have given it, right? Input some image, output animal, animal, not an animal, it has already captured. So if we just use this particular uh, code with a bit of manipulation, this code will directly work out of the box. So this was it for catching you up to the Google AI Studio advanced features. I'll see you in the next video very soon. Thank you. So now we know how to write the perfect prompt inside of Google AI Studio. But the real fun will start when we are able to use these particular prompts, right, inside our own custom code base. So, as we have already seen, like for example, this calculator structured prompt, if I click on the get code button here, it gives me the code for all of the languages that it supports right now: JavaScript, Python, Kotlin, and Swift, right? But if you see in all of them, there is just one thing that is missing for this code just to be copied from here and run directly, and that is this section called API. So if you see in JavaScript, here also the API key is not given, and same applies for Python as well. So what is this API key? So I'll tell you what it is in a very simple manner, and it will be very clear to you. So if you see on the left hand side, there is one option called get API key. Now, this get API key is nothing but the link between Google AI Studio, Gemini, and our code base. So, basically, how will Gemini know if we are calling Gemini outside of Google AI Studio? Gemini needs some kind of an identifier to know that it is me, that I am calling this particular prompt that I have created, right? So for that particular linking only, we require this API key. So I'll click on this get API key button. It will redirect me to this page. So I already have a API key that I have been using previously, but for the sake of demonstration, I'll create a new API key, a fresh API key that I will be using. So I'll choose the particular Google Cloud project. So I have this project called my first project, right? And I'll try to link this particular API key to my first project, which resides in the Google Cloud. So I'll click on create API key in existing project. Loading. So here, if you can see, even though I have blurred this out, here you can see the API key was created very securely, and it is also giving me a copy option for copy option, so that I can copy this particular API key, right? So now, in order to know if this API key is working properly or not, they have also given a curl command here. But here also, if you see properly, towards the end, there is one query param saying key equal to your API key. So instead of your API key, you have to enter the API key that was generated, and then try to run this curl command in your terminal. And if it works, then that means the API key has been generated successfully, and through that key, Google AI Studio is able to find all of your prompts that are there in your library. So let's try out this curl command just for the sake of testing if our API key is working or not. So right now I have opened the terminal on my Mac OS. So if you are on Windows, you can use CMD, and if you are on Linux or any variant of Linux, you can use the terminal which is inbuilt inside of Linux. So there what you can do is you can just paste the curl command just like I am doing right now. So I've pasted my curl command and I'll hit enter. So it will take some time because the request has to go to Gemini and Gemini has to reply back, right? Via Google AI Studio. So here, as you can see, we just sent a very basic text to Gemini saying explain how AI works, and we have got a response back from Gemini. So this signifies that our API key is working exactly fine, and we'll be able to use this API key to call Gemini or access the prompts that we have made inside of Google's AI Studio inside of any code base, be it JavaScript, Python, Android, or iOS using Swift. So this was it. This was a short and sweet video to show you how you can access the prompts that you have created inside of Google AI Studio in your own custom code base. Thank you. So now we know how to create the perfect prompt and how to generate an API key to use our prompt outside of Google AI Studio, right? So in this particular video, we'll be building a code base in Python from scratch, which will accept a particular topic as an input and write us a hundred words or 150 words blog post for us for that particular topic. So we'll be doing this from scratch. We'll first write the prompt inside Google AI Studio, a chat prompt. Then we'll generate an API key, and then inside of Google Colab, we'll try to integrate that code and see how it runs. So the first step in our journey would be to create the perfect prompt. So for this particular use case, a chat based prompt makes sense. So I'll click on create new prompt and chat prompt. So we are inside the chat prompt creation screen. So I'll just name it pretty quickly as a blog post generator. Okay, and I'll hit on save. So here for this blog post generator, we want Gemini to be the most creative. So that is why I will keep the temperature as 1, and the model Google Gemini 1.5 Pro makes sense, right? And for the safety settings, I'll say that just block most of the dangerous content and stuff. Okay, so now that we are ready, the first thing that we have to do is establish the tone and the style instructions for the model. So what we can write is act as an experienced blogger who knows about all the topics in this world. Okay, you will be receiving you will be receiving a blog post topic as an input, and you have to write a crisp and humanly don't blog post, right? Do not make up fake stuff and try to be very factual and quote stats related to that topic if possible to make the end result accurate. Okay, so what we have told Gemini is to act like an experienced blogger. Okay, and who knows about all the topics in this world. It will be receiving a blog post topic as an input, and it has to write a crisp and very humanly toned blog post for us. So now let's try and see if it works. I'll give the topic as Java. Okay, let's give it as Java and try. Okay, so it's generating. Okay, 1 minute. We forgot to give the length to Gemini. That is why it has written a very long blog post for us. So keep the word count at around 150 words. Do not cross this word limit. Okay. Now let's try to rerun this. Let's try to rerun this and see. Okay, there is no option to rerun, so I'll just delete this. I'll give it the same topic again and see what happens. Java. Okay. So I can see that the length is very less now, and hopefully it will be around 150 words or so, right? So let's try another uh, input and see if this is working properly or not. I can give something like Maruti Suzuki. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it was able to identify the Suzuki Swift car that I was talking about, and here also it has stuck to the limit of 150 words, right? So now what we'll do is, now that our prompt is more or less ready, right? So we can go ahead and try to integrate this. So once you hit this particular URL, collab.research.google.com, you will be redirected to this home page, right? So what we have to do now is click on file and click on new notebook in Drive. So it's loading. It takes roughly around a minute or half a minute to load up. So now this Google Colab notebook is now ready. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll just rename it and write something like blogger dot ipynb, right? Just giving a error, but we'll ignore the spelling and proceed. So we'll go back to the blog post generator that we have made in Google AI Studio. We'll click on get code. The Python code is here, and we'll click on copy. We'll go back to our blogger notebook. So now I've pasted the code inside of this blogger notebook. But if I run this right now, it will throw up an error, right? So as you can see, it has already highlighted one line here and it has thrown an error. So I already knew that this error will come because we have not done two things. The first thing that we have to do is we have to do a pip install of this Google Generative AI, which will install the Google AI Python SDK. So the Google AI Python SDK has all of the code through which we can access Gemini, right? So what I'll do is I'll click on this plus code button, I'll move it up, and then what I'll do is I'll just copy this, click here, and then hit on run. So it has already downloaded the Google Generated AI package and the rest of the other dependencies that were needed for Google Generative AI SDK to run properly, right? So now if I come here, again I see one problem here. Inside, while initializing the genai.configure, right, this Gemini API key is again not proper. So we have to again generate a key or get an existing key from Google AI Studio and replace it here and then run. So let's go to our Google AI Studio. First, let's go ahead and save this. So this has been saved. This prompt has been saved. I'll go to get API key. I'll hop onto the project that I had created in my previous video. So I have a key here. I'll just copy this. I'll move back to my Blogger notebook, and instead of fetching the API key from the environment variable, I'll just hard code it here for now. Okay. So the Gen AI configuration has happened properly. After that, whatever particular temperature and output tokens that we had set there, we can see that it is set here as well in the generation underscore config, right? So the model name being used here is Gemini 1.5 Pro. If we were using a custom fine-tuned model, then we would have gotten that particular model name here, right? As we saw in the advanced feature video of Google AI Studio. So system instruction it has captured here. It is exactly the same that we had given in the Google AI Studio uh, UI, right? And then inside of this chat session, it has given some of the initial chats that we had with Gemini, right, as some training data sets. And in the end, if you see, there is an option to give a message. So here we'll be adding something like, say, Python, right? So we'll give something like Python here, and then we'll try to run this whole notebook. So once you add the particular API key here, we are set to run this particular code base. So to summarize, what we are basically doing is we first did a pip install, right, of the Google Generative AI Python SDK. So that will just install all of the dependencies and all of the SDK stuff that is needed for our Google Colab notebook to talk to Gemini, right? And then if I go ahead in the second code snippet that you see, we are importing this particular google.generative AI as Gen AI, and then the first thing that we do is we link to Gemini using our API key on line number 14. After that, we set the config that we had set in the Google AI Studio, like the temperature, the max output tokens and stuff. Here if you see, there is one extra field, response mime type. So here we are using it as text plain, but if needed we can also switch to a JSON based approach here. After that, the model name has been specified as Gemini 1.5 Pro. The generation config has been imported, which was defined as above here from line 18 to 24. Along with that, the system instruction is already in place, which we had given in the Google AI Studio UI. After that, one particular training dataset chat that we had with Gemini, that same chat is simulated here so that Gemini remembers what kind of a chat we are having, right? With some dummy inputs and outputs. Like, for example, we had given the input as Java and it had generated a Java blog post in Markdown for us here, right? And the same thing was done for Maruti Suzuki Swift as well, and it had generated one particular blog post in Markdown for that. Now what we'll do is on line number 63, we'll give the input as Python, the programming language, and see what kind of stuff Gemini gives us. So what I'll do is I'll first, this has been already installed, so we don't need to hit this again. I'll just run this and then wait for the results. So it's running, executing. You can see the time here, 6 seconds, 7 seconds. Voila. Here we have a blog post written on Python in less than 150 words. So here you can see it is also using Markdown. Now let's try something else here. We can give something like, say, Google here and see what it generates. I hit enter. It's loading. Google, more than just a search bar, right? It is also using emojis. Just Google it. So it has written a humanly toned and a very catchy small blog post for us. And this is how you can extract your code from Google AI Studio and put it outside anywhere you want. Like I chose this example inside of Google Colab. If needed, you can write your own custom Python scripts and you can import this code there and add a dash of AI to any application that you are making, right? So this was it for the demo. I hope you learned something new through this uh, series of videos, right? So, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.